Hello everyone, Pedro here with CineMilled. Excited to be here today talking to you about the CineMilled Ronin-M Pro Dovetail. Now, we have a lower Pro Dovetail and an upper Pro Dovetail. In this video, I'm going to be talking specifically about the lower Pro Dovetail. So let's jump right into it. And, you know, we've been making the Pro Dovetail, which is part of like a complete counterweight system. We started with the Ronin 1. We made it for the Ronin-M, the MX. We are making one for the Ronin-S. And of course, we make it for the Movi M5, the M10, M15, and of course the Movi Pro, which is it's a big hit with the Movi Pro users. So you might already be familiar. In fact, this one looks a lot like the one for the Movi Pro. And you know, counterweights on a gimbal, on a remote head is nothing new. People have been doing it for, you know, many decades. So, you know, I just sort of took this idea and brought it to the gimbal world via our Pro Dovetail system. And so with the Ronin-2 version I have here, it's really straightforward. Basically, we have mounting very familiar, the four mounting positions for an Alexa Mini camera body. So if you have an Alexa Mini, you can bolt the camera body directly to the Pro Dovetail without having to use any tripod screws, just the M4s that you're familiar with. And this allows you to make a very lightweight build. You don't have to use the complex camera cages that may increase the height of your build. And so it lets you keep things really simple, which is nice. It's a good option to have. You don't have to use it, but it's there if you need it. We have our centrally located tripod mounting screws holes, and it's a little bit longer than the original, and we do plan on making an extended version, but I think for about 80%, maybe 90% of the camera builds out there, this length will do the job you need it to do. We will have an extended version which will cover you in some of the more extreme situations. So there will be two versions available, two lengths available. Besides that, we got some mounting holes in the front so that you can mount, CineMilled makes a rod support bracket that bolts right up to here. The original Ronin 1 rod support bracket also bolts right up, and that allows you to run camera iris rods, 15 millimeter iris rods off the front of it. Which is very important, of course, and then you see that's what we're doing here. We got two motors on there. And so, and of course, the main part is we got various mounting positions for counterweight, which is really the whole purpose of the Pro Dovetail system. So when you get into very front-heavy builds like this one, and other ones, I mean, you know, the situation here is you might have a Cook anamorphic lens. You see here we have the rangefinder, we have various lens motors, all of this, many filters in the matte box, all of this adds front weight. And thankfully the Ronin-2 allows you to slide the roll arms out, but you can max them out pretty quickly, shove the camera as far back as it'll go, and you'll still be front heavy. Now the Ronin-2 can take the weight, so it's just a question of finding the right balance. So in these situations, the only way to solve them is with counterweight. And so we make three different counterweights. We make a 1-inch version, we make a 2-inch version, and we also make an XL version. So the XL counterweight is still only 2 inches tall, but it's much larger diameter and much heavier. And so, you know, really simply, you can just screw the counterweight into the Pro Dovetail, and you're good to go. You'll notice we have the holes running across the full length of the back, and this is because the Ronin-2, it doesn't have a very wide camera cage. And so with wide cameras such as an Alexa LF or this Alexa XT, for example, many times camera builds will be heavier on one side than the other. Maybe that's because naturally the camera body is heavier on one side, or you have all the focus or the you know, iris motors, the lens motors on one side. And so you need to offset that. Normally you'd be able to adjust that with the worm drive adjustment on the bottom, but if the camera body is wide, you can't do much adjustment on the bottom. And so by simply taking the weight and mounting it either to the left or to the right, you can get it into a place where you can then fine tune with the bottom. So you can displace the weight left to right to adjust left and right balance. The other reason why having the weight on the bottom is useful is on many cameras like the Red, the actual center of the lens is like a good 3 or 4 inches from the bottom of the camera. And if you put like a Cooke anamorphic on there and a matte box with a bunch of filters, you're gonna have a very top heavy build. And you know, the Ronin 2 has very nice range on the tilt arms, but you can actually max that out pretty quick. And so by mounting the weight on the bottom, you're actually moving the CG further down, which may restore some adjustability in the tilt axis so you can really fine tune it and get it where it needs to be. So you have the side to side adjustment of the weight. You can actually use many of the 1-inch weights if you don't want the height of the counterweight. And so, yeah, and you know, in some bodies like the Alexa Mini, for example, which are actually very short and they're very, the sensors in the front of the body, so the actual body doesn't have a lot of weight on the back. So you can quickly get into a situation where you're very front heavy. And so you can actually unscrew the weight, move the camera body actually a little bit forward to make some room, and you can screw the weight from the top of the plate. Here's the camera body right here, and you can put weight on the back of the dovetail, and it doesn't affect your tilt clearance at all. Sometimes putting the weight on the bottom might affect your tilt clearance, so you can actually move it to the top, or of course you can actually mount it to the upper pro dovetail. So you have lots of options, you know. And so as you know, as you add and load up with weight either in the top or the bottom dovetail, you will quickly run out of adjustment in the pan axis, which means you have to put weight on the pan axis in order to shorten that pan axis back and leave you with adjustability on the pan axis again. So really all these counterweight solutions sort of work in conjunction, because as you add counterweight to the camera, you will run out of pan adjustment and you will need counterweight now on the pan axis. So it's really kind of a complete system, but the lower dovetail is just that. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but it's a very vital piece of equipment if you're doing these more complex camera builds that, you know, with very, very heavy lenses, and maybe very lightweight camera bodies. You know, it's not always, I have an Alexa here, you know, it's actually not as bad as you might think because it's very heavy body in the back as well. But like I said, you know, even like a Panasonic Eva or an FS5 or something like that, you could put a PL mount on there and put a very big lens. You know, there's no weight on the back because the camera weighs literally nothing compared to the lens. And so having something like the CineMilled Pro Dovetail is really important because it really sort of restores your control over the build and allows you to do things you really couldn't do without it. And you know, all that said, I really don't leave home without my Pro Dovetails. And now that we have a lower and an upper Pro Dovetail, it's always in my kit because I really want to have the most flexibility and the most amount of options when people throw curveballs at me and give me really weird camera builds. And so, well, that's about it. I do have another video where I go into a little bit more detail on the whole Pro Dovetail counterweight system. But that's pretty much it. You know, I recommend getting the upper and the lower and the pan weight mount. That's really how you maximize this. But if you simply need a longer dovetail with the ability to mount counterweight in the back, Pro Dovetail's for you. And it's available now. And I'm really excited to bring this to you guys. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. Or you can join our CineMilled Facebook users group. It's a great place to go because while I always try to answer your questions as quickly as I can, I'm really busy. Sometimes I'm on set and I can't talk or I can't check my phone. Sometimes I'm in the shop, I'm working. And so there are a lot of people on the forum now, on the user group, and a lot of them have a lot of the products that I sell and probably encountered the problem you're having trouble with. And if you throw up the question before I've had a chance to respond, there's a couple people that have answered it for you. So it's a great resource. I really recommend you checking it out. And of course, follow us on Instagram to get all the latest news on new products, new product releases, and events that we may be going to, and new videos, tutorial videos that we might be putting out. So that's about it for today, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks for all your continued support. And I hope you enjoy using this as much as I have. And thanks a lot, and I'll see you on set.